Hi, everybody. I'm Marni Baker-Stein, and I'm the Chief Academic Officer and Provost of Western Governors University. For those of you who may not know, Western Governors University is a nonprofit, totally online, competency-based university. We were born just about 25 years ago. We were the brainchild of, you guessed it, a couple of Western governors who are really interested in solving the problem of the millions of students in the Western United States who have some college and no degree. So that was where we got our start. Since then, we've grown to encompass 4 different colleges in health professions, business, IT, and teaching. And we have over 130,000 full-time students, and we've graduated over 250,000, nearly 300,000 now, undergraduate and graduate degree earners over our last couple of decades. So that's who we are. We're known for our kind of innovative, some might call it edgy approach to our instructional ecosystem and what we call our community of care. The WGU community of care, because we are competency-based, and because we allow students to start at the beginning of every month, and they can go as fast or as slow as they would like. If they want to speed up through the program, because perhaps they have had a job that is relevant to that program and lots of experience in that area, or they just have a lot of time on their hands, they can certainly speed up through the program and take more credits per 6-month term, or they can slow down. If they need help with something, if they're balancing something that's going on in their lives with work or with childcare, or if they just like to take it slow and really dive deep into some of the courses and the competencies that we present. So because of the nature of that personalization of pace, and because we have cohorts starting at the beginning of every month, our community of care, our instructional ecosystem, looks a little different than in traditional education, but I think there's a lot to learn from it that could be useful in other contexts. So essentially, our students have a community of roles that encircle them, and through case management tools, each of these community members in their roles has access to data about the students, as well as communication tools to interact with each other, so that everything that these roles are doing is laser focused on making sure we're optimizing for each student's success one by one. Today, I'm just going to focus on 3 of the roles because I think they're interesting and they really represent the primary roles that are interacting with the student across the life cycle. The first role is the program mentor. The program mentor meets the student even before they enroll at WGU and is their longitudinal coach through their entire experience. The program mentor helps the students to not only plan their graduation goal and time to graduation, but every term help them plan the number and sequence of courses that they're going to take in that term. They are also there all the time if the student has any issues with any of the related support services, from financial aid to counseling services to career services, and are a clearinghouse for those students in accessing those services, and really follows up with the students to make sure that their questions are answered and their needs are fulfilled with whatever they're looking for as they're accessing our services across the university. The mentors are generally, they hold PhDs or doctorates or otherwise have terminal degrees in field. They have a range of tools that allow them to help advise the students inside a term and across term. One of those tools is just the ability to see where the student is at against their plan. As students engage in courses in a term, they take what is essentially a diagnostic assessment at the beginning of each term, each course, and that allows them to work with the mentor to decide, okay, I might spend 15 weeks taking this course, 2 weeks taking this course. I'm going to sequence them in these ways because that data that comes out of that diagnostic is really supportive of being able to do that kind of personalized planning. And that's the mentor's role within terms and across terms. The mentor also is with the student through orientation and many other big hero moments across the student life cycle, making sure that the students get it and they feel supported and any of their questions are answered. And the mentors have tools that allow them to really see at any given moment in their cohort of students for which they are responsible, who is speeding ahead, who may be slowing down, who seems to be stuck, where are they stuck, and has tools to not only interact with the student and support the student in those moments, but also interact with the course instructor where that problem space may be located, and work with that course instructor on the student's behalf to make sure that we're moving that student forward and all their needs are met. So that's our mentor. And in many ways, I believe that the mentor is WGU's student success special sauce when it comes to reaching our outcomes and really solving on the part of students who in many cases are adult working professionals, and they really are balancing a lot. They need that help in order to keep moving forward. So that's the mentor. Inside of each course then that the student takes and schedules with the mentor, the student has a course instructor. And our course instructors, just like the mentors, have PhDs or doctorates or otherwise have terminal degrees in field. And their job, once the student gets into the course and they've taken this diagnostic, is to create with the student a plan of attack for the course, and then to serve individual students as well as groups of students with just-in-time instruction, problem solving, or deep dives into interesting topics. Our course instructors also have a set of digital tools so that they can see across students in their courses at any given time who's moving ahead, who is falling behind, who may be stuck in different parts of the course, who needs their attention. They can also see as their students begin to take their competency assessments, whether or not they're passing and failing, they're getting very detailed feedback on those competency attempts, and they are following up with those students to make sure that they can come back to the course, they can figure out what they still need to learn, and they can pass that competency exam on the second step. And this is just a look at sort of what the courses look like. Our courses, some of them we design in-house, and we design the content in-house. Some of them we subcontract out to third-party providers of like top-end courses like Udacity and others, and we integrate those into our curriculum. The course instructors at WGU do not do that design and development. That's actually a separate faculty role called the instructional designer. So we have instructional and assessment designers who actually build and continuously improve the course, and they're part of our community of care as well. So the last role that I'll sort of kind of zoom through, but I think it's really critical as well, is, because we're competency based, as students are making their way through their term with their help of the mentor, and as they're making their way through the course with the help of the course instructor, all competency assessments are blind, and they are done with a third faculty role, which is called our evaluator. And we have evaluators, and they also have terminal degrees in field. And we also have proctors who do our performance-based assessments through our third-party assessment services. And so the evaluator proctor team, they actually, like every 6 seconds, we are evaluating competency at WGU. That's thousands of competency assessments per week and hundreds of thousands and more per year. Those evaluators and proctors have a promise that within 24 to 36 hours, they will get back to the student with targeted feedback. If the student does not pass the assessment, they will get back to the student with targeted feedback on what they seem to be getting and what they aren't getting. And like I said, these reports are also shared with the course instructor, who then makes a plan with the student to get to work. So that the next time that they take the competency assessment, they will pass through. We're doing lots of work on the interface for this feedback all the time, which I think is quite interesting. We want to make sure that our students are receiving the feedback positively, both in terms of how they surface that feedback, how they react to that feedback, how they have conversations about that feedback with their instructors, as well as the tone of the feedback itself. So this is a kind of intervention science going on at WGU that I think is pretty unique to us. And this is just a shot of the interface for the proctoring. So that is WGU. These are three critical roles in our community of care. And I think the last thing I'll mention is that I think may be interesting, especially given that we're just coming out of this crazy last 18 months with COVID. The other role that I think is worth pointing out and kind of interesting is we have a team called the Environmental Barriers Team. And they basically support the mentors and the course instructors in supporting students in the case of any emergency. We set up the Environmental Barriers Team about 4 years ago to deal with emergencies like floods and fires and hurricanes and tornadoes that were impacting students in terms of their housing, maybe the job loss, and other impacts that were coming out of these environmental emergencies and events. We set them up about 4 years ago to be able to operate in all 50 states and all zip codes. And they do everything from getting students kind of just-in-time micro-lending to new computers, or help them work on access to the internet if that's been cut off. Certainly when COVID rolled through, it was like tornadoes everywhere all at once. And it really stressed this Environmental Barriers Team. They came up with a really interesting way to work with our mentors and course instructors, where when our mentors and instructors were working with students, they had a hashtag system that they used to sort of classify the kinds of impacts that students were having as COVID rolled. And that allowed us to really understand how the pandemic was affecting our students and student progress, and really start developing dozens of new policies as well as tools to support those students just in time through what was just really a national catastrophe for many of them as their kids came home from school, as they were working extra hours and taking on extra shifts, and as they were on the front lines of folks working through this last year on behalf of us all. And so yeah, that's it. That's our community of care. I hope this has been helpful to you, get a glimpse of how WGU, a large online competency-based university, works, and perhaps take away some ideas about how some of these roles and tools and ways might be useful where you work.
Hi, I'm Ryan Fewins-Bliss. I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan College Access Network. I'm really excited to talk to you about our College Completion Core, which we launched in December of 2020. And I'm so happy to do it after a representative of Western Governors University, who is a sponsor of our College Completion Core. So it's some nice synergy to tack on to the end of her presentation. If you're unfamiliar with MCAN, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're an intermediary, so as you know, we don't work directly with students and families. We work with adults and organizations and systems that work with students and families. What I'm going to tell you about today is perhaps the closest to direct service that we actually get. Our ultimate goal is to get Michigan to the state's 60 by 30 goal, which is that 60% of Michigan residents will have a certificate or a degree by the year 2030. We've got a long way to go, especially with the effects of the pandemic. We work on a couple of different levels: the community level, the high school level. We have national service programs, of which one I'm going to present to you today. And we work in higher ed, also what I'm going to talk to you about today. So we have had a college advisor program called Advise Michigan, based on the college advising core model, since 2015. That has been incredibly successful. We've got about 56 college advisors all across the state and about 72 high schools that help students in the traditional access pipeline, get into college. What we were seeing both in our advisor schools and in data statewide and frankly nationwide was that we still are fighting low completion rates at higher ed, especially at community colleges. So we could pipeline all students that we can muster into higher ed in Michigan, but not enough of them were completing to get us to 60 by 30. And eventually it called us to really contemplate the moralness of what we were doing at MCAN, because these students would stop out, right? And as we all know, stop outs tend to carry a lot of debt from the classes that they took, but they don't have a credential to get a higher paying job to pay off that debt. So it's like a double whammy for them. So how many Black and brown students, how many low income students, how many first generation college students do we pipeline into systems that were failing them? So about 2 years ago, we decided we need to attack both problems, access and success. So we decided to launch the College Completion Corps. We received a planning grant from our State Community Service Commission, ultimately from the Federal Corporation for National and Community Service. It's an AmeriCorps grant to match what we were doing with college advising in high schools, but to do it on community college campuses, some of which had like low double-digit completion rates, like 15%, 20%. That's just really abysmal. And we needed to do some things to support them. So we received a planning grant and formed this project over the course of about a year. And then last year, late in 2020, we received an implementation grant. Little did we know that COVID was coming along and was going to interrupt all of this and cause the enrollment rates at community colleges to plummet in Michigan, as well as again across the country. So it sort of doubled down on this need to retain the students who did show up, hoping that the enrollment would go back up after the pandemic and we would be able to get back on track. Prior to the pandemic, we needed to increase the degree and certificate production at the state level by about 40,000 degrees and certificates per year for us to get to 60 by 30. Now that the pandemic has hit and really pushed back the enrollment numbers, we'll have a pinch in the pipeline, which will mean we'll need far more than 40,000 new degrees and certificates. So getting students to complete is even more important. And it was really, really important prior to the pandemic. We successfully launched the program in December. We launched with 20 sites. We got 20 coaches. We got 23 applications in our competitive process. We said, hey, community colleges, who wants a coach? What do you think? How can we help you? And made it a competitive process. We received 23 applications in that competitive process. We had 20 slots or 20 coaches to dole out. So there was competitiveness, right? We had more than we could actually fund. We ended up funding 18 campuses across the state. And when I mean across the state, if you're familiar with the mitten that is Michigan and the two peninsulas, we are all over the place from top to bottom. We have 18 campuses, 15 community colleges, which was our original intent for how we designed the program. We ended up with 2 of the 3 tribal colleges in the state, and we have traditionally not worked very strongly with them. So I'm incredibly proud that we're serving our tribal colleges and really excited to tell you that coming up in the next December, we're adding the 3rd tribal college. So we'll serve all 3 of them. And then we ended up with 1 4-year institution, a state public institution that also offered 2-year programs. So the coach is supporting just those students in the 2-year programs, not the 4-year programs. And again, the reason we're focusing so strongly on the community college population is those completion rates were double-digit below our 4-year institutions. So if you look where the need is, it's with community colleges. So that's where we decided to invest our time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it felt like after launching this program, the state came along and said, hey, we're going to roll out this brand new grant program for adult population to go back to college based on Tennessee Reconnect. We're calling it Michigan Reconnect. It'll be a tuition-free pathway for students 25 and above to go back to or start going if they've never gone to community college. We would love to have some of your coaches on those campuses to be able to be ready to serve those students. So we've got some state funds. Let's add 7 new coaches on campuses that don't have coaches yet, and we'll pay for it. And we were like, great, expansion already. We just started the program, let's do this. Shortly after that, the state came to us again and said, listen, we've been offering these completion grants to community colleges. And when we got the applications, we reviewed them and a bunch of them wanted coaches. It doesn't make sense for us to fund a bunch of coaches. You're already doing that. Can we give you some of the funding and you will add some coaches to the mix? And we said, of course. So we added 4 more coaches to the mix this summer to serve those campuses that were awarded a success grant from the state. Then out from the feds came the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA dollars that were available, and that the National AmeriCorps agency ended up getting $1 billion extra dollars from the ARPA funds and was able to dole that out to states. And so we applied for some extra money from our state commission to say, let's expand even more. There's clearly a need for coaches, especially post-pandemic. We think we can serve more campuses. And we ended up being fully funded for 40 total coaches in the year that starts next December. We've strategically started our coaches in December rather than the beginning of the academic year because AmeriCorps terms last, as many of you know, in 1-year increments. And so if we started people out in let's say July or August, they would end the following June or July, and we'd miss the summer period where we have a lot of summer melt in folks coming to college, when we lose a lot of students who don't show back up in the fall who were already enrolled. So we thought, what if we could cover those 3 months still in the summer and have somebody fully on staff able to do that? And so we decided to start at the break in the semester from fall to winter. So our coaches start in December, really January functionally, because many of the campuses mostly shut down during the holiday break, and they serve on their campus for a year, covering summer up to the following December. Coaches who are doing a great job and want to stay on, as long as their campus is interested in keeping them on, they're able to serve an additional year of service in the program. But we anticipate there will be some turnover in folks that are ready to move on to the next phase of their career. Coaches serve a designated 100 to 150 student cohort. So they're not serving just anybody. The institution, using data, decides who are the students who are most likely to stop out, that need the most support to complete. Let's put this resource for them. And so each campus gets to designate what that looks like through the lens of MCAN's priorities. Again, first generation college going students, students of color, and low income students. So they can choose whatever 100 to 150 students they want to choose. And I've got some examples here of what campuses have chosen. So some have broadly chosen first generation students, some have chosen economically disadvantaged students. We have legislatively created promise zones in Michigan, which are promise scholarships based on geography that uses tax increment financing to pay for students to go to college. So some of our cohorts that are being served are promise students from that community. We've got students in a debt forgiveness program that have been put into the cohort. Some of those folks that are Reconnect scholarship recipients are in a cohort. We've got a campus that's using a predictive analytics model that will tell them who is most likely to drop out, stop out, scoop them up into the cohort. Students who are on SAP warning, first-time enrolled men of color, Pell eligible students. So you can see there's some generalities, but also some specifics. And there's one that had really specific choice: sophomores who are within 1 semester of completing an associate's degree or certificate, who are having challenges with graduation, transfer, or completion. So each campus could really winnow that window down really broadly through the lenses that we talked about, the 3 priority demographics, or make it really small to make sure they hyper focus it. And I love the creativity that the campuses have used across the board. So the coaches then are assigned these 100 to 150 people, and that's their caseload for the year. So what do they do with these students? Well, these folks are coaches and not advisors. So these are not academic advisors who sit down with students and say, you know, what are you thinking of majoring in? And let's sign you up for these classes like a traditional advisor. They'll have a lot of those conversations and talk about a lot of those topics, but they're not academic advisors. We believe that academic advising is best left to the professionals at the institution. What we found is missing from most campuses is somebody to be a cheerleader, somebody to make connections with students and resources, to bring resources from the community to students. We all know the stories of students who get a flat tire on the way to class and they have to stop out because they can't figure out how to get that tire fixed. They don't have the funding to do that. Things in their lives bubble up and end up taking them off course. It's hard for an institution to have somebody who's designed to like interfere with that process and find those students and solve those students' problems. That is a lot of what our coaches do. They help with that sort of wraparound model of supports at the campus and refer the student to those different supports. So the student knows that they exist, knows where they are. Oftentimes the coach will walk the student across campus and say, have you met my friend Melanie, who is the academic advisor? Have you met my friend Ryan, who works in the writing center? Rather than saying, hey, if you just walk across campus into this building, go into this office and someone there will help you. We know that there's a portion of students who never make that walk and don't get those supports. But if you're walking hand in hand with someone across campus, it's harder to bail on that decision because they're going to introduce you. And often the coach will sit through those coaching or those advising sessions, those support sessions, so that they can hear the content as well. So that next time, you know, Johnny calls and says, I need support on this, we can say, hey, remember, you talked to Ryan at the Writing Center. His advice was this. And so it really helps bring it full circle. Making sure those folks have good study skills, time management skills, all those things that really, really matter, that campuses only have limited resources to support students on. And then the ultimate thing that the coaches do with each student is help them to complete a degree plan, or we call it a completion plan. What is their pathway from where they are to completing? And we define completing as either getting a certificate, getting an associate's degree, or transferring to a four-year institution to complete their academic career. So they map it out, and we know degree mapping, CCA tells us degree maps work, right? It's part of the game changer strategies. So it really helps those students be able to see the entire pathway, see where they're going, see every step of the way, and then helps the coach move them through that path. That's been really, really successful. So some quick data points to wind us up here. I've got some data just at January through April. So basically the first 4 months of the program that we had launched, we had 2,605 students assigned to coaches. Again, this is statewide. We had already 1,500 one-on-one meetings in that 4-month period. 48 workshops had been facilitated. We had 1,465 referrals for resources given out. And we know that 643 of those referrals were followed up on. So just under a 50% follow-up rate. We have 434 students who had completed their degree plan. And 801 students had registered for courses. So some really strong numbers coming out, and I'm sure we've sort of doubled the time frame that I just described to you, and I'm sure the numbers almost doubled as well, since things have been going so well. I've had the opportunity to talk to several of these college presidents and faculty members and other people on campus, and it's so nice to hear them rave about the power of these AmeriCorps members on campus to make a difference in their students' lives. I've already heard folks say, when this person's done with their year of service, we're hoping to scoop them up and make them a permanent staff member. We've heard people say, hey, if you get more slots, we'd like more coaches on our campus because it's working so well. We've heard folks talking about institutionalizing coaching into their framework, that things are working so well, we're going to have a coaching program that we facilitate, we pay for, we being the institution, which is great because they're obviously able to do it at a much higher level than we are from a state centralized level. So we've seen some major successes already. I know that the program is going to continue to grow. I hope you all will consider programs like these in your communities, in your states. We've just been overwhelmed at how successful it is, which is great because, as I told you, we had such a need that we identified in which to start this program to serve. And so hopefully those two things are going to meet in the middle, and we'll bring completion rates up for Michigan. which will help us all in the long run, especially Michigan's economy. If you're interested more in our program, please reach out to me at the Michigan College Access Network. My email address is ryan@micollegeaccess.org. And our phone number here at MCAN is 517-316-1713. We love to talk about this program, and we'd love to learn from what you all are doing too to continue to strengthen what we're doing. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, I'm Sarah Horn, the co-founder and chief impact officer for ReUp Education. At ReUp, we are all about helping stopped out learners, folks who have some college and no degree, ultimately come back to college, help them re-enroll and graduate. And one of the prime components of the work that we do is all about providing personalized support at scale to support the right student at the right time in the right way. One of the big components of the work that we do at ReUp is about making sure that learners have options and pathways in order to complete. Our network is focused on making sure that all of the learners that we support, whether they are in the early stages of exploring a reentry back to their college experience, or if they are firm in their commitment and decision in what they want to do, it is our responsibility through personalized support and coaching to not only find the best path for learner completion, but also to reconnect each learner with the best fit institution for them to complete. In some cases, that is where the learner started their degree program, and in others, this could lead to a learner transferring. Our coaching model and personalized support model has a three-pronged approach. At the beginning, it is all about data. We understand where students have been, why they left, how long they've been out, and we're also capturing in every minute of every day how learners engage with us or not through email, text, and phone calls. We're using predictive analytics to take all of the data that we're collecting and understand how to personalize automated outreach and human-based outreach. And that is where our success coaches come in. These are highly trained professionals, many of whom are stopped out learners themselves, who take the data that we provide to them, along with the recommended interactions and interventions for each individual student, and deliver those to students at the right time in the right way through multiple channels and modalities. One of the keys to success through our coaching model at ReUp is that we've developed a proprietary and patent pending software solution that essentially helps our coaches to understand on any given day and at any given time who to reach out to, why, and how. Our personas platform helps our coaches to understand what makes each individual learner unique and what are the various interventions, from financial guidance to logistical guidance to program information to academic history. What are the barriers and friction points that learners are going to have as they explore going back and completing? And how do we help reduce those barriers and friction points in order to see more learners ultimately come back, complete, and retain? One of the keys to our coaching model success is that the data that we are relying on to understand who to reach out to and how to intervene is not simply academic data or engagement data. It also includes behavioral data, motivational data, and circumstantial data. So as you can imagine, as we are engaging with learners who sometimes have been out of college for years, the reasons why they left are relevant to the learner story, but they may not necessarily apply in the present time. So it's extremely important to get an up-to-date understanding of what the learner wants, where the learner wants to go, what could get in the way, and ultimately what is motivating them, so that our coaching process can meet students where they are and make recommendations and provide a cadence of support and interaction that matches where the student is, what they want, and what they need, that is based on the here and now, not on information that we have when they stopped out and when they were an active student 6 years ago. We found in our work with stopped out learners that there is a very high rate of engagement, and there is a lot of need to make sure that students have both reactive but also proactive support. As you can see here, we see on average that it takes more than 50 interactions for learners to re-enroll. And that doesn't stop at the time that learners re-enroll. We also want to see students succeed and engage all the way through to graduation. Therefore, our outreaches and interactions continue all the way through to graduation. We have found in our model that meeting students on email, on phone, through text, and even through social media, those are important places to coach students because they're on their phones and they're on the go. And that is how we make sure that we deliver support and motivation and interventions to students in the right way at the right time. Our learner journey and helping them re-enroll and ultimately graduate is long. And there's a lot of back and forth that occurs. And you can see here, this is what it looks like, an example student of how often there is back and forth between the learner and the coach. Some of these engagements are very transactional. Reminders about term starts, reminders about registration, reminders about finals. Some of these meetings, though, are also transformational, helping learners to understand what they want to do in terms of major. Some learners are changing their major. They want to better understand how quickly they can complete and ultimately finish their degree. And there are contingencies on that. How am I going to pay? Where am I going to find childcare? These are transformational interactions happening on the phone, happening through text, happening through email, and our coaches and model helps our team to understand where to find learners in a way that works for them, provides personalized support, and ultimately helps them complete. So thank you for taking a few minutes to understand what really drives the ReUp coaching model, which is rooted in providing personalized support for stopped out students at scale.